Now, if you break down the non-voice part of the BPO industry even further, it becomes very clear that it's not just any non-voice. We hear non-voice meaning HR-related non-voice or finance and accounting, procurement, etc. What is really driving the growth in the next 5 to 6 years is going to be the industry-specific non-voice. And if you click one more time, it essentially means having very vertical specific knowledge and skill set within your organization. The 3 examples I have, because it's very relevant to us at SPI Global, is if you understand the healthcare market and have products and services you can offer to people in the US, then you are in a better shape. If you have a good skill set to provide publishing related services in the marketplace, you are in a good shape. If you are ahead of the curve in what's happening in the interactive media, then you are in a better shape going into the next 5 to 6 years. HR, F&A will continue to grow, but the real growth is going to come from the industry-specific non-voice part of the business. The next trend is and before I talk about the next trend, let me kind of give you a quick insight on what that means from going from voice to non-voice and going from very much vertical specific non-voice to industry specific non-voice. The revenue per FTE has to grow with that marketplace. So for example, we have roughly 530,000 employees in 2010, and we are doing roughly $17,000 per FTE in 2010 in the Philippines. In 2016, based on the numbers that BPAF has put together, our FTE count is going to 1.3 million people working in this industry, and each one of them would have to actually create or generate roughly $19,000 per FTE per annum. So there is a marginal increase per FTE that has to happen between now and in 2016. That means the value of what you do has to be higher for your clients. But I want to kind of compare that with what's happening in India. We think it's going up here in the Philippines, but if you look at the numbers for India, in India between 2002 and 2010, the revenue increased by 9 times, but the FTE count increased only by 6 times. So they clearly have figured out a way to go from low value, low margin work in the beginning of the BPO industry in India to high margin, high value work. And I think we have something to learn from that experience. And I think the number going from $17,000 per FTE to $19,000 per FTE, I believe is a conservative number. If we really do well and figure out a way to attract the right high value services from the clients, we can truly get in line with what India has done and what it will be doing in the next 5 to 10 years. Okay. The next trend is the competition is heating up. A decade ago, when I started in the industry, when you think about the outsourcing, and if you're in the US, you think about Canada, you think about Northern Ireland, Mexico was just emerging, and India and the Philippines were just making a dent in the industry. So it was a pretty low-key marketplace, and if you have a solid cost advantage like what we did in the Philippines and India, then you know you're going to be successful. But now, that marketplace is heating up. We are not the only game in town. You got China, Vietnam, Sri Lanka in Asia, who are the new emerging BPO destinations. People tell me, I'm worried about India. And I said, I'm not really worried about India, in fact. India has a symbiotic relationship with Philippines when it comes to the BPO industry. You see a lot more Indian companies now setting up their voice-related shops here, and they know that there is a combination, there is a symbiotic relationship they can really take advantage of. What I'm really worried about is China. China is number 2 in the number of graduates that come out annually in that country. It's 2 million graduates annually. That's second to India, compared to 500,000 people coming out of schools in the Philippines. And well, as you saw, non-voice is the future. You don't need the English skill set. And China doesn't have to really worry about whether their people can speak and communicate English with Americans or the people from UK or Australia, New Zealand. As long as they have the technical skills as required to work in very industry-specific requirements, they can really give us the run for the money. So China, within the Asia-Pacific region, China actually truly will become one of the dominant player and perhaps a force that we'll have to reckon with. If you look at Morocco, Egypt, and South Africa, they are the three countries that are going to be giving us run for the money for our European clients. They are really emerging. Egypt, in fact, was the only country in the last 4 years that has taken the National Outsourcing Association Award in UK from us. The other 3 years, we won it as the BPO Destination of the Year award from the UK. So Egypt is truly an emerging market, and we'll have to keep an eye on it. Latin America is, if you are in the voice side of the business in BPO market, you have to really think about what your Latin American strategy is, because American population is, and the dynamics are changing. It's becoming more and more shifted towards Hispanic. So the companies are looking for solutions that are bilingual in nature. They are looking for companies that can offer them not only service in English, but also in Spanish. So if you're a Filipino-centric company with no exposure or no presence in Latin America, that's not a good sign. You have to figure out what your Latin American strategy is and how that part of the world is going to change your future in this industry. So that's number 2 trend. Number 3 trend is BPO market, where the revenue is coming from. Again, a decade ago, majority of the revenue in the BPO industry came from United States and UK. They were the 2 pioneering countries that started thinking about moving the jobs offshore to the Philippines and India and creating the BPO industry in its nature. But today, that equation is changing as well. If you look at what are the fastest growing segments for revenue now for the BPO industry, you wouldn't believe it, but it's Asia Pac. India actually has higher growth rate for revenue for Asia Pac market. That includes their own domestic market. So suddenly the equation is shifting. If you're only focused on UK and US as a market to bring in your revenue, then you have to also look at your strategy and say, how can I tap into the Asia Pacific market that's growing? How can I tap into the China? How can I tap into the Indian market? How about the BRIC countries? Brazil, India, and China, they're going to be the key players and are also growing at a faster rate than most of the economies in the world. How about Western Europe? That's a growing market for us now. Finally, beyond UK, the places like Germany, Netherlands, and France, and Spain have figured out a way that they need to also get on this bandwagon of BPO and look at how they can benefit from the outsourcing and offshoring market. So those are the 3 key trends that I see. And I want to kind of now position how SPI Global fits into those 3 trends. So number 1 trend was, obviously we knew that Philippines is growing. It has a bright future ahead of us. The number 2 trend was non-voice is the future. Number 3, the competition is growing and is becoming more and more competitive in the marketplace. And number 4, we talked about the revenue and where it's coming from is also changing. And based on those trends, I want to kind of put SPI Global and how it kind of fits into the play. First and foremost, we are proud to be Filipino-centric. We are one of the very few companies that is based in the Philippines and has a global outlook. Most of the BPO players today, you see, and this room is actually a good example of it, is international players making Philippines one of their homes. But SPI is unique in its way because we have made Philippines our home and now we are looking outside. And the fact that Philippines is going to triple in its size in the next 6 years or so, we believe we are in a good place at the right time. We talked about non-voice versus voice. The good news for SPI Global is our ratio between non-voice and voice already matches what the future should be. In fact, it's better. We are almost 2/3 non-voice in our revenue than the voice part of the business. Number 3, industry specific. Our non-voice is not horizontal. It's not F&A and HR and procurement. Our non-voice is very specific to key industries that require skilled employees. Healthcare is one of them. I talked about that earlier. We have roughly 2,500 FTEs around the world doing anything from medical transcription to highly skilled revenue cycle management that requires almost a year's worth of certification before you get hired by the company. Number 2, we have a content solutions team. Ratan is leading that team for us, and that team is, again, made up of highly skilled employees who can provide the services required by the largest publishers around the world or largest content aggregators around the world. So again, it's a very industry specific, it's very vertical specific, something that requires the right skills. The next one is our revenue base is diversified. Unlike some of the companies where majority of the revenue is coming from the US, we have a strong base in Europe, as well as tapping into the Australia, New Zealand market now. But then we are also a dominant player here in the Philippines. We are among the top 5 providers for the Filipino market itself, with the key market clients like Philippines Airline, obviously being a PLDT company. PLDT and Smart are clearly, proudly our clients as well. So clearly, if you look at our revenue base, it's diversified, and it will continue to actually get diversified.